Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Tesla had a great day today, up almost 6% at the time of recording this video. But the volatility is not over. The big volatility, potential downside volatility, could be over. CPI was a critical catalyst. If CPI came in hot, this would be a much different video than what it is today. But tomorrow, we do have retail sales, which is going to be a big catalyst. We do have TSMC earnings, which is going to be a big catalyst for NVIDIA, the semiconductors, and AI broadly speaking. I will share with you my thoughts around this and what could happen to Tesla and broader markets tomorrow. With that said, as I explained in the last video, we could see a gamma ramp this week. If tomorrow is positive, Friday we don't have much for catalyst, you could see people really piling into those options. One thing to point out is the options market yesterday was pricing in about a 5% move by Friday. So a 3 days period, we were pricing in a 5% move. Today we're moving up almost 6%. So you've already done the whole rest of this week's expected move today. So anything from this point gets outsized, which is a good thing, but it's going to likely drive more trading activity into Tesla. We'll take a look at the option activity here in this video as well. So with that said, ladies and gentlemen, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already, or if you own Tesla stock. Let me know how many of you guys own Tesla stock by hitting that like button. So first and foremost, I want to start with the recognition, again, that CPI was the big potential negative catalyst. No matter which way retail sales come out tomorrow, whether they're really strong or really weak, I think there's a positive silver lining out of either one of those scenarios. First and foremost being, if retail sales come in really good, the economy is doing great. Inflation just came down, that's good. If retail sales come in weak tomorrow, economy is not as strong, a greater reason for the Fed to cut rates, and maybe less inflationary pressures. Now, this is not my opinion. This is kind of how Wall Street's going to view this. So I don't see tomorrow's retail sales data as being a large potential negative catalyst for markets. I really think today's CPI report was a decisive flip for markets. Considering we are so negative, there is a lot more of a rally that we could see at this point. Now, the next big catalyst for markets, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be tariffs. Okay, now we're kind of getting some rumors recently. The last couple of days, we got some rumors that instead of a 10% tariff, I think it's probably going to be a 10% blanket tariff on everything. Okay, and there's going to be exemptions to that, right? Certain companies, maybe Apple gets an exemption, or maybe, NVIDIA gets an exemption or something. There's going to be exemptions, but I think maybe a 10% blanket tariff would make sense. But you could see perhaps that 10% tariff be put on over the course of 10 months. You could see 1% of a tariff increase over the next 10 months. That, I think, would be seen as very positive relative to our expectations, right? Because we were expecting 10%, 20%, whatever the number is for tariffs to be slapped on pretty much immediately. If it's more of a gradual approach, that should be less inflationary, even though tariffs are technically not inflationary. It's just a one-time bump up in prices. I think Wall Street's really going to like that. And there's a lot of areas of our markets that have gotten beaten down in the last couple of weeks based on this tariff fear. Pretty much point out the sector, and there's probably been, some tariff fears embedded there somewhere. Okay, so first and foremost, before we get into Tesla stock specifically, what I mean about a potential gamma ramp Let's start with the retail sales, the data coming out tomorrow morning, because we're going to go through this pretty quick and there's not going to be a whole lot to say here. Again, retail sales, I kind of already said it. We're expecting is positive 0.6% month over month. That would be really strong considering last month was positive 0.7%. Okay, so I personally think the stronger the better, because I think the stronger the economy, the better our markets will ultimately do. I don't think a strong economy needs to be paired with strong inflation or sticky inflation. Can that happen? Of course. But like we seen on Friday with the jobs report, we added 256,000 jobs, but inflation for December actually came in lower than expected. That's what you want to continue to see, right? A good economy with lower inflation. Now, retail sales, if we come in really hot, well, I think that's a positive. Markets may not like that as much because that could be inflationary. If we come in at expectations or a little bit lower, I think the markets would generally like that more than a hot number. But I would like a hotter number just personally. Now, we will get export prices month over month and import prices month over month. This feeds into the Atlanta Fed GDP Now tracker, so we will get a new GDP estimate for Q4. The last update we had was on January 9th, 2025 at 2.7%. So we will see, do the estimates go up further or do the estimates kind of come down following those data points tomorrow? You will get initial jobless claims coming out tomorrow, expecting 210,000, and the Philadelphia Fed Manufacturing Index, expecting that at -5. Last month was -16.4. You will get continuing jobless claims, as well as export prices and import prices year over year. Philly Fed business conditions, Philly Fed CapEx Index, employment, new orders, and prices paid will be coming out, with the main focus here on prices paid. That's one of your inflation data points. Now, it's not a hard data point. It's a survey of supply chain and managers in the Philly Fed region and their expectations for inflation, essentially, for how much prices are expected to go up. So if you see this prices paid component go up, it just means people are expecting prices to go up, not that prices actually went up. So I think that's important to point out. Business inventories month over month expected at 0.1%. That's going to be part of the GDP update that we will get, and the NAHB Housing Market Index that is also going to be coming out tomorrow at about 10 o'clock in the morning. So that's your data lineup for tomorrow. Now, tomorrow morning, we will get some earnings. You have TSMC. Now, we already got Foxconn earnings. When we got Foxconn earnings, that sent TSMC up about 5% that day. So expectations are a little bit higher now for TSMC. And given Foxconn beat with record revenue up 42% year over year for the month of December, I have no reason to believe TSMC is going to have bad earnings. In fact, I'm really not concerned about earnings this entire year. Yeah, sure, could you get a soft spot on earnings around Q1, Q2? Perhaps, but generally speaking, I think earnings estimates are pretty spot on for this year. And I'm especially not concerned about Q4 earnings, which is what we are going to start getting here. Now, as long as TSMC has good earnings and does not surprise to the downside, then you're likely going to get some optimism within NVIDIA that has recently traded down, with AI stocks. And ultimately, I think 2025 is going to be about AI appliers. So TSMC beating could also be good for some of your software names and keeping that AI trade alive, which will benefit Tesla. Now, tomorrow morning, you also get United Health Group, Bank of America, Morgan Stanley, U.S. Bank Corp, PNC, M&T Bank, and a couple of others. And then tomorrow and after hours, JB Hunt. That one could actually be very important. Transport company, one of the biggest out there. Bank of Ozark and RF Industries. And then Friday, we'll have SLB, Fastenal, Truist, State Street, Citizens, Independent, Sci-Fi, and Webster Bank. Now, option activity in Tesla stock did get better into the end of the trading day today. You ended the day at 115 different trades, totaling $129 million with a positive order value of 78%. That looks a lot more like what you would expect to see on a day where Tesla was up 6%. So that looks pretty good from my perspective heading into tomorrow. And that makes a lot of sense, right? CPI came in much lower than expectations today. You would expect to see more people bullish on Tesla. Now, for this Friday's expiration, today, we had volume of 60% calls and 40% puts. Technically 39.88% puts and 60.12% calls. So that means people were actually in favor by quite a margin of the calls today. Now, if we take a look at the options chain, you have a lot of activity, believe it or not. Volume of 82,000 at the 420 call, 10,000 for volume at the 422 call, 37,000 for volume at the 425 call, almost 40,000 for volume at the 430 call, 33,000 for volume at the 440 call, and 38,000 for volume at the 450 call. If we can continue to move higher tomorrow, especially, we don't have much for economic data on Friday. We have building permits and some housing data, but really nothing. And what we've tended to see with Tesla, when Tesla gets going, it continues to go until we get news that, kind of slows us down. I want you guys to keep in mind, there is a rumor that Elon Musk is going to be buying TikTok. That is a $100 billion company just in the US. So that would not be a small acquisition. That would be short-term very negative for Tesla. So, if you're short-term betting on Tesla, you do not want to see those rumors actually materialize into, talks about buying TikTok. That would be not so great. Okay, so that is a potential risk because, heading into this Friday, January 17th, the TikTok ban happens on Sunday. So you may not hear anything that may be a totally false rumor. I'm just going to, point out to you that is a risk to this equation. If there is another hit piece on Elon buying, TikTok, I don't think that's going to be positive for Tesla stock in the slightest bit. But all things equal, as long as there is not that setback, I would see it likely as Tesla could rally or really see a gamma ramp into the end of this week. It definitely looks like there is more interest in the options today. Following the CPI report, that makes sense. TSMC has good earnings tomorrow morning. Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot more excitement about, a strong earnings season, an economy that's strong, inflation that just came in on the weak side, and maybe even Trump tariffs that are not enacted all at once, but on a stepped up month by month basis. You add all of these things together, and it's hard to make a bearish case, especially considering CNN's Fear and Greed Index is at 29, still in the bottom quartile of fear, pretty close to extreme fear. I mean, markets are still pretty damn negative. 35.31% of stocks are trading above their 50-day moving average. That means 65% of markets are in an active decline, right? That's wild. That's just... that's not good, right? So just to get back to more of a neutral level, to see this rise another 15%, where half of our markets are in an uptrend, half are still in a downtrend, would be a considerable rise from here, right? You would have to essentially do today 3 times over again, because you had 4.5% of all stocks break above their 50-day moving average. So you would have to see a day like today 3 times in a row from here to get to 50% of stocks, just 50% of stocks trading above their 50-day moving average. There's a lot of room for improvement here. That's the point that I'm trying to make out. And as long as things do not continue to get worse, then I would expect that improvement could continue. Now, the big level for Tesla to get above is 422. If we get above that, that opens the door to a rally to 460. The option activity suggests we could see a gamma ramp to 450 by the end of this week, whereas, running to 460 wouldn't be, out of character for Tesla in the slightest bit. That would be a rally from here of about 9.71%. Call it 10% for round numbers. To get to 450, that would only be a rally of 7.33%. So that's not too unrealistic, in my personal opinion. If things are maybe, really good, if we get confirmation of the stepped up tariff basis from Trump and not just a one-time slap in the face, then, I could see people getting a little bit more exciting, and 15% rally from here by the end of this week, which could happen. I wouldn't bet the farm on this, but it could happen. Would put Tesla's stock at about 480, and that would be a 14.5% move from here. So I'm encouraged by what I'm seeing. I think there's a lot of reasons to be bullish at this point. There's not a very strong bear case for Tesla. I don't really think there ever was, but especially after today, there's really not much of a bear case left. So let me know what you guys think about this down below in the comment section. Ladies and gentlemen, have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.